Hi, I'm Maya. They said I was the med school dropout who couldn't cut it. At my sister's emergency surgery, my family whispered right behind my back. They never saw the nights I spent mentoring struggling students in that tiny campus library. Never guessed what those recommendation letters in my desk meant. But one woman did. She walked in, spoke my name, and their whispers died. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The hospital waiting room smelled like antiseptic and cold coffee. I tightened my grip on the visitor badge while my mother paced a half step ahead of me, her designer heels clicking against the polished floor. Around us, medical staff rushed past with charts and quiet urgency. A nurse called out, "Trauma. Team to Bay 3, and I felt my stomach clench. My younger sister Vanessa had been in a serious car accident. The text from my mother had been brief, "Come now. Emergency surgery." Nothing more, not even which hospital. I had to call 3 before finding her. I glanced down at my wrinkled scrubs, one pocket frayed from constant use, and hoped they looked intentional enough. After all, I hadn't expected to see my family today. I worked nights at the free clinic across town, as far from their country club circle as I could get while still practicing medicine. Just not the kind they approved of. We found the private waiting room near the surgical wing and pushed open the heavy door. My father stood by the window, his silver hair catching the morning light, phone pressed to his ear. "I need your best team on this," he was saying. "Price is no object." Across the room, my older brother Nathan looked up from his tablet, his expression cooling when he spotted me. He leaned toward his wife Sophia and I heard him mutter, "Guess who finally showed up? The almost doctor." Sophia answered without lowering her voice. "Well, at least she's wearing scrubs. Playing the part till the end." The words pricked like needles. I felt 24 again, standing in our family dining room with rejection letters from elite residency programs while Nathan waved his surgical fellowship acceptance. I should have said something clever, something sharp. Instead, my muscles locked and my tongue went dry. I moved to the coffee station, pretending I hadn't heard, but my hand trembled slightly as I reached for a paper cup. My fingers brushed against the embroidered patch on my scrub pocket, a small caduceus I'd sewn on myself. I'd told myself, your path is still medicine, no matter what they say. I believed it most days. Today, surrounded by my family's judgment, I wasn't so sure. A tall doctor in navy blue scrubs pushed through the door, chart in hand. "Mrs. Keller?" My mother stepped forward, composure perfect despite the circumstances. "Yes, doctor. How is my daughter?" "I'm Dr. Aisha Rahman, lead trauma surgeon. Vanessa is stable but she needs immediate surgery. The accident caused internal bleeding. And her spleen has ruptured. We need to operate now." My father crossed the room in 3 strides. "Are you the best surgeon here?" "Because I can have someone flown in from," Dr. Rahman cut him off with practiced efficiency. "Sir, your daughter doesn't have time for another surgeon to fly in. I assure you, I'm more than qualified to handle this procedure." I hung back, watching her confident stance, the way she held my father's gaze without flinching. Something about her seemed vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. "Fine," my father said, deflating slightly. "Do what you need to do. Dr. Rahman nodded, then her eyes swept the room and landed on me. For a moment, something flickered across her face, recognition, perhaps? But it vanished so quickly I thought I'd imagined it. "The surgery will take approximately 4 hours, she said, addressing the whole family but still looking at me. "A nurse will update you hourly. I need to prep now." As she turned to leave, my mother caught her arm. "Doctor, please, she's my baby." Dr. Rahman's professional mask softened just slightly. "I understand. I'll take good care of her." The door closed behind her with a soft click, and silence fell over the waiting room for 3 heavy seconds. Then Nathan cleared his throat. "Well, at least she seems competent. Unlike some people who couldn't handle the pressure." My mother shot him a warning look, but it was half-hearted at best. I felt my chest tighten, the familiar weight of their disappointment settling in. I inhaled through my nose, counting 1, 2, 3, the way my therapist had taught me when the panic attacks started during my 3rd year of med school. Focus on the present. Keep breathing. Yet every exhale tasted like regret. The nights studying. Until my eyes burned. The loans I was still paying off. The look on my father's face when I told him I was leaving the surgical track for community medicine. Throwing it all away, he'd said. All that potential, wasted. Across the room, Sophia tapped away on her phone, probably updating the family text chain, the one I'd been removed from years ago. I watched her manicured nails flash as she typed, remembered how she'd looked at my calloused hands at last year's holiday dinner and murmured, "Oh honey, you really should take better care of yourself." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I'm going to get some air, I said to no one in particular. The hospital corridor buzzed with controlled chaos. Nurses rushed past with medication carts. Residents huddled over charts, dark circles under their eyes. This had been my world once, or almost was. I found a quiet corner near a window and leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breathing. A young resident rushed past, then doubled back when she saw me. "Dr. Keller," she asked, eyes wide. I felt my face flush. "I'm not, it's just Maya." The resident looked confused. "But you taught the community health rotation at Eastern Medical last year, right? Your lecture on resource allocation in underserved communities changed my whole perspective." Before I could respond, a voice called from down the hall. "Dr. Chen. We need you in Bay 4. The resident gave me an apologetic smile. "Sorry, gotta run. Hope to catch you later, Dr. Keller." She hurried away before I could correct her again. I wasn't technically a doctor, not the kind my family respected, anyway. I'd completed medical school, yes, but when panic attacks and exhaustion led me to step back from my surgical residency, my family considered it the same as dropping out entirely. What they didn't know, what I never told them, was that I'd found a different path. Teaching medical students at the free clinic. Developing community health programs. Working with people who couldn't afford the kind of care my family took for granted. I checked my watch. Dr. Rahman had been operating on Vanessa for almost an hour now. I should go back to the waiting room, but the thought of facing Nathan's smug disappointment made my stomach churn. My phone buzzed with a text from Carlos, my colleague at the clinic. "Everything okay? You disappeared mid-shift." I typed back. Quickly. "Family emergency. Sister in surgery. At Memorial Hospital." 3 dots appeared, then, "Dr. Rahman's hospital? You're in good hands." I frowned, staring at the message. How did Carlos know which surgeon was operating on Vanessa? Before I could ask, another message came through. "She was one of your students, remember? The one you fought to get into the rural medicine program when the admissions board wanted to cut her." My breath caught. That's why Dr. Rahman had looked familiar. 5 years ago, she'd been a brilliant but struggling medical student, working 3 jobs to stay afloat, nearly dropping out due to financial pressure. I'd spent countless hours helping her prepare for exams, wrote her glowing recommendations, even confronted the admissions director when they tried to deny her application to the specialized trauma program. I hadn't recognized her. But had she recognized me? The thought was interrupted by my father's voice. "Maya. There you are." The nurse came with an update. I followed him back to the waiting room, where my mother sat rigid, clutching a tissue. "What did they say?" I asked. "The bleeding is worse than they thought," my father said, his voice tight. "But the surgeon seems confident." Nathan stood by the window, arms crossed. "If you'd stuck with the program, you could be in there helping. Instead of, what is it you do again? Hand out aspirin at that free clinic?" I felt heat rise to my face. "We do a lot more than hand out aspirin, Nathan." "Right," he snorted. "Playing doctor instead of being one." My mother sighed. "Please, not now. This isn't about Maya's career choices." The way she hesitated before career cut deeper. Then Nathan's direct attack. In their eyes, I wasn't just a disappointment, I was irrelevant. An afterthought. Hours crawled by. My father made important-sounding phone calls. Nathan disappeared to the cafeteria with Sophia. My mother alternated between pacing and sitting perfectly still, her face a mask of controlled worry. I sat alone, scrolling through medical journals on my phone, trying to focus on anything but the knot of anxiety in my chest. An article about trauma surgery techniques caught my eye, new approaches to splenic repair, exactly what Vanessa was undergoing. I read it twice, making mental notes. The door opened again, and Dr. Rahman entered, surgical cap still on, looking tired but composed. "The surgery was successful," she announced, and the tension in the room eased slightly. "We were able to repair the spleen rather than remove it, which means a better long-term outcome. She's in recovery now." My father stepped forward, hand extended. "Thank you, doctor. When can we see her?" "She'll be in post-op for another hour, then move to ICU. You can see her briefly once she's settled." Dr. Rahman's eyes found mine again, lingering this time. "May I speak with you privately, Ms. Keller?" My family exchanged looks of surprise. Nathan's eyebrows shot up. "Why would you need to talk to Maya? I'm the one with medical training in the family." "Well, completed training." Dr. Rahman's expression remained neutral. "It will only take a moment." Confused but curious, I followed her into the hallway. Once the door closed behind us, her professional demeanor shifted slightly. You don't remember me, do you? She asked, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. I swallowed. I'm sorry, I should have recognized you right away. Carlos. Just reminded me. You were in my community health seminar 5 years ago. She nodded. I was. But that's not all. She pulled a worn piece of paper from her pocket and unfolded it carefully. You wrote this for me when the board tried to deny my application to the trauma surgery program. I recognized my handwriting immediately. The recommendation letter I'd spent nights perfecting, arguing passionately that Aisha Rahman had more natural surgical talent than most attendings I'd observed. You fought for me when no one else would, she continued. You stayed after hours to help me practice suture techniques. You convinced Dr. Harmon to give me a second chance after I failed that practical exam because I'd worked a double shift at my night job. I remembered it all now, the determined student who'd almost fallen asleep during lectures but somehow still answered every question correctly. The young woman who'd confided that she was sending half her loan money home to support her younger siblings. It wasn't just that, Dr. Rahman said, tucking the letter away. You taught me how to see patients as people, not just conditions to solve. That medicine isn't just about technical skill, it's about advocacy. Care. That changed everything. For me. I felt a lump forming in my throat. I was just doing my job. No. Her voice was firm. You were doing much more than your job. And seeing you here today, she paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. I overheard your brother in the hallway earlier. About you playing doctor. He's wrong, you know. Before I could respond, the door to the waiting room opened and my father stepped out. Doctor, when exactly can we see Vanessa? Dr. Rahman straightened, professional mask back in place. As I mentioned, sir, she'll be moved to ICU shortly. A nurse will come get you. He nodded, then looked between us with curiosity. What's this about? Dr. Rahman smiled politely. Just discussing some aspects of your daughter's recovery. Excuse me, I need to check on my patient. She walked away, leaving me alone with my father. He studied me with the appraising look I'd grown to dread, the one that always found me wanting. What was that really about? He asked. I hesitated. What could I say? That the brilliant surgeon who just saved Vanessa's life had once been my student? That while I might not have the prestigious title or the corner office, I'd made a difference. In ways my family had never bothered to understand? Nothing important, I said finally. Just some follow-up questions about Vanessa's care. He seemed satisfied with this answer, and we returned to the waiting room. Nathan was back, coffee in hand, eager to demonstrate his medical knowledge by explaining what a splenectomy entailed. Incorrectly, I noted silently. Actually, I said before I could stop myself, Dr. Rahman performed a splenic repair, not a removal. It's a more technically demanding procedure, but it preserves immune function and prevents long-term complications. Nathan's expression soured. And you know this how, exactly? I said simply. My mother sighed. Maya, please. Let's not start. A nurse appeared at the door. The patient is settled in ICU now. I can take 2 visitors at a time. My parents stood immediately. Nathan stepped forward as well, but my father shook his head. Let's not overwhelm her. Your mother and I will go first. They followed the nurse, leaving me alone with Nathan and Sophia. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Sophia spoke. So, that doctor seemed to know you. Old classmate? There was something in her tone, curiosity mixed with disbelief, as if she couldn't imagine someone like Dr. Rahman associating with someone like me. Something like that, I replied. Nathan snorted. Probably remembers you as the one who couldn't hack it. I looked at him then, really looked at him. My successful older brother with his surgical fellowship and his perfect wife and his inability to see beyond the narrow definition of success our parents had drilled into us. You know, Nathan, I said quietly, there are many ways to practice medicine. Not all of them involve cutting people open. Sure, he agreed with false generosity. Someone has to handle the easy stuff so real doctors can focus on important cases. The old Maya would have let this slide, swallowed the hurt, changed the subject. But something had shifted when I saw that letter in Dr. Rahman's hands. When I realized that while my family had been dismissing me, I'd been making a real difference. The easy stuff, as you call it, is preventative care that keeps people from needing surgery in the first place, I said. It's managing chronic conditions so they don't become emergencies. It's treating people who can't afford the kind of care you provide. Nathan's eyes widened slightly. I rarely pushed back. That's noble, I guess, he said, recovering quickly. But you had the talent for surgery. You could have been exceptional. Instead, you're, giving flu shots at a free clinic? What a waste. The door opened before I could respond. My parents returned, my mother's eyes red-rimmed. She's still Very groggy, my father reported. But stable. They say the next few hours are critical. Nathan and Sophia stood to take their turn. As they reached the door, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Raised voices, the sound of running feet. Dr. Ramon's voice cut through the noise. Get a crash cart to ICU 4, now. My father paled. That's Vanessa's room. Everything happened. In a blur after that. Alarms blaring. Medical staff rushing past. Us, pushed back into the waiting room, the door firmly closed. My mother collapsed into a chair, her composure finally breaking. What's happening? She said the surgery was successful. My father paced, phone in hand, already threatening to call hospital administration. Nathan stood frozen, all his medical knowledge useless in this moment. I closed my eyes, trying to think. Post-operative complications after splenic repair. What would cause a crash situation? The article I'd just read mentioned delayed hemorrhage, hypotensive shock. The minutes stretched endlessly. My mother sobbed quietly. My father's voice grew louder as he demanded answers from anyone who passed. Nathan stared at the floor, white-knuckled. Finally, the door opened. Dr. Ramon stood there, looking exhausted. But steady. She's stabilized, she announced. There was a small bleed we missed, but we've controlled it. Her vitals are good now. The relief in the room was palpable. My mother sagged in her chair. My father's shoulders dropped from around his ears. Thank God, he breathed. Dr. Ramon nodded. She'll need careful monitoring, but I believe the worst is behind us. How did you catch it so quickly? Nathan asked, professional curiosity overriding family concern for a moment. Dr. Ramon's eyes found mine across the room. Actually, I was reviewing some recent literature on post-splenic repair complications. An article recommended specific monitoring protocols for the first 6 hours after surgery. We implemented those protocols, which is why we caught the bleed early. I felt a jolt of recognition. The same article I'd been reading earlier. Well, thank goodness for good research, my mother said, dabbing at her eyes. Indeed, Dr. Ramon agreed, still looking at me. Knowledge saves lives, no matter where it's applied. She excused herself to check on other patients, promising to return soon. As the door closed behind her, my father collapsed into a chair, the crisis having drained him. I need coffee, he muttered. Real coffee, not this hospital swill. I'll go, Sophia volunteered quickly. There's a decent cafe across the street. Anyone else want anything? Orders were placed, and she departed. Nathan sat beside my father, discussing something in low tones. My mother had closed her eyes, exhaustion evident in every line of her face. I slipped out quietly, needing air. Space, a moment to process everything. The hospital corridors were quieter now as evening approached. I found a small courtyard garden and sat on a bench, watching the sky turn dusky purple. Footsteps approached, and I looked up to see Dr. Ramon. She'd changed out of her scrubs into dark jeans and a simple blouse, a white coat thrown over them. Off duty but not quite. Mind if I join you? She asked. I gestured to the empty space beside me. Please. She sat with a tired sigh. Long day. Thank you, I said. For saving my sister. Twice. Just doing my job. She smiled slightly, echoing my earlier words. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. That article you mentioned, I said finally. About post-operative monitoring for splenic repairs. I was reading it earlier today. I know, she replied. I saw it on your phone when I came into the waiting room the first time. It's what reminded me to implement those protocols. I blinked in surprise. So you saved your sister using knowledge you indirectly provided? Yes. She turned to face me fully. That happens more often than you think, you know. The ripple effects of good teaching, of mentorship, of caring. Enough to fight for someone who needs an advocate. My throat tightened. My family thinks I failed. That I couldn't handle the pressure of real medicine. And what do you think? I looked down at my hands. The same hands that had practiced sutures for countless hours. That had comforted patients in the free clinic. That had written recommendations for students who needed someone to believe in them. I think I found a different path, I said slowly. One that matters, even if it's not the one they understand. Dr. Ramon nodded. For what it's worth, I think you're an excellent doctor. You taught me that medicine isn't just about technical skill or prestigious positions. It's about seeing people. Really seeing them. A nurse appeared at the courtyard entrance. Dr. Ramon? Sorry to interrupt, but you're needed for a consult. She stood, straightening her white coat. Duty calls. Will you be here tomorrow? I'd like to talk more when things aren't so hectic. Yes, I said. My sister will need someone here. She smiled. Good. Oh, and Maya? That recommendation letter you wrote for me? I keep it in my locker. Read it before difficult surgeries. Your words still give me courage. With that, she was gone, leaving me alone with the gathering twilight and the first faint stars. I stayed in the courtyard a while longer, thinking about paths taken and not taken. About how sometimes the most important work happens in quiet corners, away from spotlights and accolades. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Where are you? Vanessa's asking for you." I stood, brushing off my scrubs, and headed back inside. Whatever my family thought of me, my sister needed me now. And maybe, just maybe, they'd see me a little differently after today. As I walked through the hospital corridors, I passed a bulletin board covered with thank you cards from patients. In the center was a group photo of the trauma team, Dr. Rahman standing proudly among her colleagues. Beneath it, a simple quote, "We rise by lifting others." I smiled to myself and kept walking, standing a little straighter with each step. The ICU was hushed when I entered, the soft beeping of monitors creating a rhythm that felt both urgent and soothing. Vanessa lay against white sheets, tubes and wires connecting her to machines that monitored every breath, every heartbeat. Despite everything, she looked peaceful. "Maya?" Her voice was barely audible, hoarse from the breathing tube they'd removed after surgery. I moved to her bedside, careful not to disturb any of the equipment. "Hey, trouble. You gave us quite a scare." Her pale lips curved into a weak smile. "Sorry about that. Not exactly how I planned to get the family together." I laughed softly, taking her hand in mine. Her fingers were cold, and I wrapped both my hands around hers, trying to warm them. "How bad is it?" she asked, always direct, even now. "Dr. Rahman repaired your spleen instead of removing it. There was a complication, but they caught it early. You'll need to take it easy for a while, but you should make a full recovery." Vanessa nodded slightly, wincing at the movement. "She's good. The doctor." "One of the best," I agreed. "She knew you." "Not a question." Even sedated and in pain, my sister missed nothing. I hesitated, unsure how much to share. "We've crossed paths professionally." Vanessa's eyes, so much like mine but clearer now despite the medication, held mine steadily. She said something when she thought I was still under. About learning from the best. My throat tightened. Before I could respond, the door opened. And my parents entered, followed by Nathan and Sophia. The private room suddenly felt crowded, the air thicker. "Sweetheart," my mother rushed to Vanessa's other side, tears flowing freely now. "We were so worried." My father stood at the foot of the bed, his usual commanding presence subdued in this sterile environment. "The doctor says you're stable. Now. I've arranged for a private room on the VIP floor once you're cleared to leave ICU." Nathan positioned himself near the monitors, automatically checking the readouts like he owned them. "Vitals look good. Oxygen saturation is excellent." I started to step back, to give my family space around Vanessa, but my sister's fingers tightened around mine. "Stay," she whispered, so only I could hear. So I stayed, quietly holding her hand while my parents fussed and Nathan explained medical terminology with practiced authority. Sophia stood back, scrolling through her phone, occasionally looking up to nod sympathetically. A nurse appeared at the door. "I'm sorry, but ICU policy is 2 visitors at a time. And the patient needs rest." My mother straightened her shoulders. The family matriarch once more. "Of course. We'll take turns." But Vanessa spoke up, her voice stronger than before. "I want Maya to stay." 4 pairs of eyes turned to me in surprise. "Darling," my mother began, "wouldn't you rather have your father or Nathan? They understand what's happening medically." Vanessa's gaze never wavered. "I want Maya." Something shifted in the room then, like tectonic plates moving beneath familiar ground. My mother's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. My father looked between us, calculating something I couldn't read. Nathan's expression darkened just slightly. "Fine," my mother said finally. "We'll be in the waiting room if you need anything. Anything at all." They filed out, each pausing to kiss Vanessa's forehead or squeeze her hand. When the door closed behind them, the room seemed to expand, the air easier to breathe. Vanessa exhaled slowly. "God, they're exhausting." I laughed, genuinely this time. "You're the one who had major surgery today. They should be worried about tiring you out, not the other way around." She smiled, then winced as the movement pulled at something painful. "What happened between you and Dr. Rahman? Really?" I sank into the chair beside her bed, still holding her hand. "I taught her. During medical school. She was one of my students when I was doing clinical instruction." Vanessa's eyes widened slightly. "You never told me you taught." "There's a lot I never told any of you," I said quietly. "Like what?" I looked down at our intertwined hands. Vanessa and I had once been close, before I left the surgical track, before the family narrative solidified around my failure. She was 7 years younger, just finishing college when my life took its detour. By the time she entered her own medical program, physical therapy, not medicine, to our parents' barely concealed disappointment, the distance between us had grown too wide to navigate easily. After I left Mass General's surgical program, I began slowly. I didn't just disappear or give up medicine like everyone thinks. I found something different. Something that mattered to me. The free clinic Carlos mentioned at Christmas? Dad thought you were just volunteering. I shook my head. I'm the medical director. I also teach at Eastern Medical School, clinical skills and community health. I design programs for underserved communities. I publish research. Vanessa was quiet for a moment, processing this. Why didn't you tell us? Would it have mattered? I asked, more sharply than I intended. Mom still introduces me as her daughter who almost became a surgeon. Dad still asks when I'm going back to real medicine. Nathan still treats me like I'm playing doctor. I would have cared, she said softly. The simple statement hit me harder than any of Nathan's barbed comments or my parents' careful disappointments. I would have cared. I'm sorry, I whispered. So this Dr. Rahman was your student? Yes. 5 years ago. She was brilliant but struggling financially. Working multiple jobs to stay afloat. Almost dropped out several times. And you helped her. I did what any teacher would do. Stayed late to help her practice. Wrote recommendations. Fought for her when the system was stacked against her. Vanessa's eyes were getting heavy, the medication pulling her toward sleep. That sounds like you. Always fighting for the underdogs. Get some rest, I said, squeezing her hand gently. I'll be here when you wake up. She nodded, eyes already closing. Maya? I'm glad you're here. Not just anyone from the family. You. I sat with her until her breathing deepened into sleep. Then carefully extracted my hand and stepped into the hallway. I needed coffee and a moment to process everything that had happened today. The hospital cafeteria was nearly empty at this hour. I bought a coffee and found a corner table, away from the few scattered late-night visitors. The events of the day swirled in my mind like leaves caught in a whirlpool. Vanessa's accident, Dr. Rahman's revelation, my family's persistent dismissal. Mind if I join you? I looked up to see Dr. Rahman standing there, coffee in one hand, a worn leather messenger bag slung over her shoulder. Please, I gestured to the empty chair across from me. She sat with a grateful sigh. I'm officially off duty, but I wanted to check on your sister once more before heading home. Thank you. She's sleeping now. Dr. Rahman nodded, taking a sip of her coffee. She seems strong. Reminds me of someone else I know. I smiled faintly. She's the strong one in the family. Always has been. I disagree. It takes a different kind of strength to choose a path that matters to you over one that impresses others. Her words hung in the air between us, honest and unvarnished. I studied her face, the confidence that hadn't been there 5 years ago, the quiet authority she now carried effortlessly. How did you do it? I asked suddenly. Balance everything? The pressure, the expectations, the workload? She considered the question, turning her coffee cup slowly between her hands. I nearly didn't. There were so many times I almost walked away. Too tired, too broke, too overwhelmed. She looked up, meeting my eyes directly. But then I'd remember what you told me once, after I failed that trauma simulation. What was that? You said, medicine isn't about never failing. It's about what you learn each time you do. Simple words, but they stayed with me. She smiled slightly. Along with the 10 extra hours of practice you forced me to put in afterward. I laughed. You needed it. Your first attempt at that chest tube insertion was terrifying. Fair. She grinned, then grew serious again. But it was more than the technical skills you taught me. You showed me that there are many ways to be a healer. That sometimes the most important medicine happens in conversations, not procedures. The weight that had pressed on my chest all day eased slightly. Try telling that to my family. Dr. Rahman's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. I overheard some things in the hallway earlier. Your brother has a particularly loud whisper. I winced. Nathan has always excelled at making his opinions known. Opinions aren't facts, she said firmly. And his opinion of your work is factually incorrect. A comfortable silence fell between us. In the distance, a code was called over the intercom. And we both instinctively tensed, then relaxed when it wasn't for a floor either of us was responsible for. I read your paper, she said suddenly. The one in the Journal of Community Health last month. About integrating preventative care protocols in free clinics. I blinked in surprise. You did? We implemented your screening algorithm in our ER last week. She smiled. It's already caught 3 cases of early hypertension that would have been missed in the standard workflow. Pride bloomed unexpectedly in my chest. Really? Really? She leaned forward. Maya, your work matters. Maybe not in ways that impress people at country club dinners, but in ways that actually save lives. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother, "Where are you? Nathan wants to discuss Vanessa's care plan with the night nurse." Dr. Rahman saw my expression change. Family duty calls? Always, I sighed, standing reluctantly. I should get back. She nodded, rising as well. I'll walk with you. I want to check Vanessa's latest labs anyway. We made our way through the quiet corridors, our footsteps echoing on the polished floors. As we approached the ICU, voices drifted from the small consultation room nearby. My family, apparently, simply don't understand why she's still here. Nathan was saying, his tone dismissive. It's not like she can contribute anything medically relevant. She's family, my mother replied, though without much conviction. And Vanessa asked for her. Because she doesn't know any better, Nathan countered. Maya plays at being a doctor in that free clinic, but this is real medicine. Trauma surgery. She couldn't handle it, remember? Had a complete breakdown during her residency. I froze, the familiar shame washing over me. Dr. Rahman stopped beside me, her expression darkening. That's not entirely fair, my father's voice, surprisingly. The pressure at Mass General is intense. Many residents struggle. But most don't quit, Nathan said. Most don't throw away everything they've worked for to play nurse at a charity clinic. I started to turn away, unable to bear hearing more, but Dr. Rahman caught my arm. Wait, she whispered. Inside the consultation room, someone else spoke, Sophia, her voice thoughtful. That doctor seemed to know Maya, though. Almost like they had history. Probably remembers her from the program, Nathan dismissed. Maya was notorious by the end. The golden girl who couldn't cut it, literally. I don't know, Sophia mused. The way Dr. Rahman looked at her seemed more like respect. A short, disbelieving laugh from Nathan. Respect? For what? Maya couldn't handle a simple appendectomy without having a panic attack. What could a trauma surgeon possibly respect about that? I pulled away from Dr. Rahman, unable to listen anymore. The shame that I thought I'd processed years ago surged back, hot and suffocating. I pushed through the nearest door, a supply closet, and leaned against shelves of gauze and surgical kits, trying to steady my breathing. The door opened behind me. Dr. Rahman slipped inside, closing it quietly. I'm sorry, I managed, embarrassed. To be found hiding among medical supplies. I just needed a minute. You have nothing to apologize for, she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. Your brother, on the other hand. I shook my head. He's always been like this. The golden boy. Perfect grades, perfect career, perfect life. He can't understand anyone who makes different choices. That's not an excuse for cruelty. No, I agreed. But it's familiar. Comfortable, even, in its predictability. Dr. Rahman was quiet for a moment, then spoke carefully. What happened during your residency? If you don't mind me asking. I hadn't talked about it in years. Had wrapped it up and tucked it away where it couldn't hurt me anymore. But something about the quiet darkness of the supply closet, the gentle understanding in Dr. Rahman's eyes, made it possible to unearth it again. It was my second year of surgical residency, I began slowly. I was on track for everything I thought I wanted. Chief resident material, they said. Following in my father's footsteps, just like Nathan. I leaned against the shelves, remembering. There was a car accident victim. Young woman, pregnant. We tried everything, but we couldn't save either of them. It wasn't unusual, we lost patients before. But something about this one broke through all my defenses. Dr. Rahman nodded, understanding. Without words. I started having panic attacks in the OR. Nightmares. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The attending suggested a brief leave, but my father. I swallowed hard. He said taking time off would be career suicide. That I needed to push through it. So you tried. I tried. For 3 more months, I forced myself into the OR every day, heart racing, hands shaking inside my gloves. Until one day, during a routine appendectomy, I froze. Completely. Couldn't move, couldn't speak. The attending had to take over. The memory still had the power to make my chest tighten. I walked out of the OR and never went back. My father called it a momentary lapse in judgment for the first month. By the second month, it was a disappointing development. By the third, I was simply the failure of the family. Dr. Rahman was silent for a long moment. And no one ever asked what you wanted. What do you mean? Whether you even wanted to be a surgeon in the first place. Whether that path was yours, or one chosen for you. The question hit me like a physical blow. Had anyone ever asked? Had I ever asked myself? I don't know, I admitted. Medicine was always the plan. The Keller family tradition. 2 generations of surgeons before me. Nathan was already following the path. It never occurred to me there could be another way. Until you couldn't do it anymore, she finished gently. I nodded. The panic attacks were real. The burnout was real. But afterward, when I found my way to community medicine, to teaching, it felt right in a way surgery never had. Like I could finally breathe. That's not failure, Dr. Rahman said firmly. That's courage. Listening to yourself instead of everyone else. A soft knock at the door startled us both. It opened slightly, and a nurse peered in, surprised to find 2 doctors in the supply closet. Oh, Dr. Rahman, I've been looking for you. The lab called about Ms. Keller's latest results. I'll be right there, Dr. Rahman replied smoothly, as if being found in a closet with her patient's sister was perfectly normal. The nurse nodded and withdrew. Duty calls, Dr. Rahman said with a small smile. But Maya, this conversation isn't over. I followed her back into the corridor, feeling oddly lighter despite the overheard conversation, despite the memories dredged up. As we approached Vanessa's room, my family emerged from the consultation area, Nathan in the lead, still talking. He stopped abruptly when he saw us together. Dr. Rahman. We were hoping to discuss my sister's postoperative care. Dr. Rahman's professional mask slipped seamlessly into place. Of course. I was just reviewing her latest labs. Everything looks promising, but we'll need to monitor her closely for the next 24 hours. My father stepped forward. Doctor, we'd like to arrange for a private recovery room as soon as possible. Money is no object. Ms. Keller needs to remain in ICU until she's stabilized, Dr. Rahman replied firmly. After that, we can discuss transfer options. Nathan cleared his throat, clearly wanting to establish his medical credentials. As a surgeon myself, I understand the protocols, but surely some accommodation, as her surgeon, Dr. Rahman interrupted smoothly. My primary concern is your sister's recovery, not her accommodations. We'll transfer her when it's medically appropriate to do so. The subtle emphasis on her surgeon wasn't lost on anyone. Nathan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Now, if you'll excuse me, Dr. Rahman continued, I need to check on Ms. Keller before I leave for the night. She entered Vanessa's room, leaving my family in the hallway. My mother sighed dramatically. So brusque, she murmured. Competent, certainly, but lacking a certain professional courtesy. I bit back a laugh. In my mother's world, professional courtesy meant deferring to wealth and status. She saved Vanessa's life, I reminded her. Twice. Yes, my mother waved dismissively. And we're grateful, of course. But Nathan's expertise is being completely ignored here. Nathan puffed up slightly at this acknowledgement. I'm only trying to ensure Vanessa gets the best possible care. As her brother and as a medical professional. Dr. Rahman is providing excellent care, I said, unable to stay silent. Her postoperative protocols are cutting edge. The fact that she caught that secondary bleed so quickly is testament to her skill. Nathan's eyebrows rose. And you're qualified to make that assessment how, exactly? Before I could respond, Dr. Rahman emerged from Vanessa's room. She's awake and asking for you, she said, looking directly at me. I started toward the door, but Nathan stepped in front of me. I'll go. She probably has medical questions. Dr. Rahman's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes hardened. Actually, she specifically asked for Maya. Again, that subtle shift in the family dynamic. Nathan looked genuinely perplexed, as if he couldn't imagine anyone choosing my presence over his. Fine, he said finally. I'll go check on securing a private room for when she's transferred. I slipped past him into Vanessa's room, aware of Dr. Rahman following me. Vanessa was indeed awake, looking slightly better than before, a hint of color in her cheeks. Hey, she said softly when she saw me. I was starting to think you'd abandoned me to the wolves. I smiled, taking my place beside her bed again. Never. Just getting some coffee. Dr. Rahman checked Vanessa's vitals efficiently, making notes on her tablet. Everything's looking good, she told Vanessa. How's the pain, on a scale of 1 to 10? 6, Vanessa admitted. But manageable. I'll have the nurse bring something to take the edge off. You need rest more than anything now. Vanessa nodded, then looked between us curiously. So how do you two know each other? Really? Dr. Rahman glanced at me, a question in her eyes. I hesitated only briefly. Dr. Rahman was my student, I said. During medical school. I taught clinical skills and mentored students in community health programs. Vanessa's eyes widened. You were her teacher? But you never said anything when she came in earlier. I didn't recognize her right away, I admitted. It's been 5 years. And I wasn't sure she'd remember me, Dr. Rahman added. I was one of many students. Not that many, I corrected. And certainly not one I'd forget, once I placed you. Dr. Rahman smiled slightly. Your sister was an exceptional teacher, she told Vanessa. Changed the course of my career, actually. Vanessa looked at me with new eyes, as if seeing something she'd missed before. You never told us any of this. I shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. It never came up. Because you never gave it a chance to, Vanessa said, with surprising sharpness for someone post-surgery. You just accepted the family narrative that you'd failed. Her words struck home, all the more powerful for their simple truth. I had accepted their version of my story. Had internalized it so completely that I'd stopped offering alternatives, even to myself. Dr. Rahman finished her examination and stepped back. Get some rest, she told Vanessa. I'll be back in the morning to check on you. She turned to me. Walk me out? I nodded, promising Vanessa I'd return shortly. We stepped into the hallway, now empty of my family members, who had presumably gone in search of better coffee or more amenable hospital staff. Your sister sees you more clearly than the rest of them, Dr. Rahman observed as we walked toward the elevator. Vanessa always was the perceptive one, I agreed. Even as a child, she noticed things others missed. We reached the elevator, and Dr. Rahman pressed the down button. As we waited, she turned to face me fully. I have a proposition for you, she said. My department is launching a new trauma prevention initiative. Community outreach, education, early intervention programs. We need someone to lead it, someone with both medical knowledge and community health experience. I stared at her, not quite comprehending. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you an opportunity, she corrected. To bridge two worlds you already inhabit. The academic hospital and the community clinic. Full attending privileges, research support, teaching opportunities if you want them. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. Dr. Rahman stepped inside, holding the door open. Think about it, she said. No pressure, no deadline. But Maya. Her voice softened slightly. You have gifts that are being wasted while you hide from your family's disapproval. The medical community needs voices like yours. The doors began to close. I'll be back in the morning to check on Vanessa. We can talk more then, if you want. Then she was gone, leaving me standing in the empty hallway, her words echoing in my mind. Dawn broke over the hospital, painting the sterile white walls with gentle gold. I'd spent the night in a recliner beside Vanessa's bed, refusing to leave. Even when the night nurse offered to call me if anything changed. Some vigils can't be delegated. Vanessa stirred as the first rays of sunlight touched her face. Her eyes fluttered open, clearer now, more present. The worst was behind her. You're still here, she murmured, voice stronger than the night before. Wild horses couldn't drag me away, I replied, stretching to work out the kinks from sleeping. Upright. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck, but at least it's a smaller truck than yesterday. I laughed, checking the monitors out of habit. Her vitals were strong, oxygen saturation excellent. The surgeon in me, the part I'd never fully abandoned, noted the improvements with quiet satisfaction. Dr. Rahman will be by soon for rounds. I said, pouring her a cup of water. She'll be pleased with your progress. Vanessa took a small sip, then fixed me with that penetrating gaze that had always been her superpower, even as a child. Tell me about your clinic. The request surprised me. In the 5 years since I'd left the surgical program, no one in my family had ever asked about my work. Not once. Why now? I asked. She shrugged slightly, then winced at the movement. Because I just realized I don't know what my own sister does. Because I nearly died yesterday and that tends to clarify priorities. Because I'm tired of the family narrative. The door opened before I could respond. A nurse entered, clipboard in hand. Good morning, Ms. Keller. How are we feeling today? She moved efficiently around the bed, checking 4 lines and monitors. Better, Vanessa replied. Your vitals are excellent, the nurse confirmed. Dr. Rahman will be in shortly. She turned to me with a small smile. Dr. Keller, there's fresh coffee in the staff lounge if you need it. Dr. Rahman said to tell you you're welcome to it. My surprise must have shown on my face. Oh, the nurse added, and your family is in the waiting room. They've been asking. When visiting hours start. Thank you, I said, wondering how the hospital grapevine had already labeled me, Dr. Keller, when I'd arrived as simply Vanessa's sister. When the nurse left, Vanessa raised an eyebrow. Dr. Keller, huh? I shrugged. Hospital gossip travels at light speed. Or maybe Dr. Rahman made sure her staff knew who you really are. The thought was both warming and unsettling. For so long, I'd grown accustomed to being diminished in my family's eyes. The recognition, even from strangers, felt foreign. I should freshen up before the others arrive, I said, changing the subject. Will you be okay for a few minutes? Vanessa nodded. Go. I'm not going anywhere. I slipped into the adjoining bathroom, splashing cold water on my face and attempting to tame my hair. The woman in the mirror looked tired but strangely resolute, as if something had shifted overnight. Maybe it had. When I emerged, Dr. Rahman was in the room, reviewing Vanessa's chart. Good morning, she said, looking up with a smile. Your sister is making remarkable progress. Good genes, Vanessa quipped. Dr. Rahman chuckled, then turned to me. Did you get any sleep? Enough, I replied. That recliner is surprisingly comfortable. Hospital furniture has improved since our days of catching naps in supply closets, she said, referring to the brutal hours of medical training we'd both endured. She proceeded with her examination, explaining each step to Vanessa with the kind of clear, respectful communication I'd always tried to instill in my students. No talking over the patient, no unnecessary jargon. Medicine as conversation, not pronouncement. Your recovery is proceeding faster than expected, she told Vanessa. If this continues, we can move you to a regular room this afternoon. Thank God, Vanessa sighed. No offense, but ICU lighting is terrible for my complexion. Dr. Rahman laughed. None taken. Your sister can explain the practical reasons for the harsh lighting, I'm sure. Easier to assess cyanosis and other color changes, I supplied automatically. Though they've never solved the problem of how it makes everyone look like death warmed over. Vanessa looked between us, a small smile playing at her lips. You two speak the same language. Medicine is a language, Dr. Rahman agreed. And your sister taught many of us how to speak it fluently. She made a final note in the chart. I'll check back this afternoon. The regular visiting hours start in 30 minutes, so brace yourself for family arrival. After she left, Vanessa turned to me with newfound curiosity. She really respects you. I busied myself adjusting her blankets. We're colleagues. No, Vanessa shook her head. It's more than that. She looks at you the way I used to look. At my favorite professors. Like you showed her something precious. Before I could respond, the door burst open and our mother swept in, designer handbag swinging, perfume enveloping us in a cloud of expensive notes. Darling, she exclaimed, rushing to Vanessa's side. You look so much better. I knew you'd bounce back quickly. My father followed, still in yesterday's clothes but somehow looking immaculately put together regardless. Nathan and Sophia trailed behind, carrying coffee cups from an upscale cafe several blocks away. We brought you a proper breakfast. My mother continued, unpacking containers from a bag I hadn't noticed. Hospital food is simply dreadful. Mom, I'm not sure she's allowed, I began. Oh, Maya, she waved dismissively. Vanessa needs proper nutrition to heal. Not whatever processed nonsense they serve here. I bit my tongue. The carefully prepared post-surgical diet had specific purposes, gentle on a traumatized system. Balanced for healing, mindful of potential complications. But arguing nutrition science with my mother was a losing battle I'd fought too many times. Actually, Vanessa spoke up, I should stick to the hospital diet for now. Doctor's orders. My mother looked momentarily perplexed, as if the concept of following medical advice over her own instincts was entirely novel. Well, perhaps just the smoothie then. It's organic kale and pineapple. Nathan positioned himself at the foot of the bed, automatically assuming the stance of the attending physician. Your color looks good. Oxygen sat as 98, that's excellent. Pain level? Manageable, Vanessa replied. Dr. Rahman said I'm recovering faster than expected. She seems competent enough, Nathan allowed grudgingly. Though trauma surgeons tend to be cowboys. All action, minimal thought. I couldn't help myself. That's an outdated stereotype, Nathan. Modern trauma surgery requires incredible precision and decision-making under pressure. It's one of the most intellectually demanding specialties. He looked at me with mild surprise, as if a piece of furniture had suddenly offered an opinion. Well, yes, I suppose if you're only familiar with the basics, it might seem that way. My father cleared his throat. I've arranged for a private room on the executive floor. As soon as Dr. Rahman clears you to leave ICU, you'll be moved there. Much more comfortable. That's thoughtful, Vanessa said carefully. But really, any regular room is fine. Nonsense, our mother chimed in. You need proper rest, not nurses tramping in and out at all hours. I exchanged a glance with Vanessa. We both knew that more attentive nursing care was exactly what she needed right now, not the relative isolation of a VIP room where checks might be less frequent. Dr. Rahman will make the appropriate recommendations, I said mildly. Speaking of, my father turned to me, you seem quite familiar with her. Something in his tone put me on alert. My father never asked casual questions, every inquiry had purpose. We've crossed paths professionally, I replied, the same explanation I'd given Vanessa earlier. He hummed noncommittally. Nathan. Mentioned she seemed to know you. Nathan looked up from his phone. Yes, quite odd really. Almost deferential, which makes no sense given your current situation. The familiar dismissal stung, but less sharply than usual. Something had changed, Dr. Ramon's respect, Vanessa's questions, the nurse calling me Dr. Keller. Small validations accumulating like droplets of water, slowly eroding the narrative my family had constructed around me. Maya taught her in medical school, Vanessa said suddenly, her voice clear and firm despite her weakened state. She was one of Maya's students. The room went still. My mother's hands froze in the act of arranging fruit on a napkin. My father's eyebrows rose. Fractionally. Nathan's head snapped up from his phone. Taught her what, exactly? My father asked carefully. I took a deep breath. Clinical skills. Community health. Research methodology. I didn't realize you were teaching, my mother said, a curious note in her voice. There's a lot you don't realize about Maya, Vanessa replied before I could. An uncomfortable silence descended. Nathan broke it with a short, disbelieving laugh. Teaching medical students? Come on. You need faculty appointments for that, credentials. She has them, Vanessa said firmly. Maya is faculty at Eastern Medical School. She runs the community health program at the free clinic. She publishes research. I stared at my younger sister, wondering when the fragile patient had become my fierce defender. My father studied me with new interest. Is this true? I nodded, finding my voice. Yes. For the past 4 years. Why didn't you tell us? My mother asked, and I was surprised to hear what sounded like genuine hurt in her tone. I tried, at first, I admitted. But after the third family dinner where my work was dismissed as playing doctor or hiding from real medicine, I stopped mentioning it. Nathan had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. Sophia suddenly became very interested in her manicure. My father cleared his throat. Well, that's unexpected. Is it? Vanessa challenged. Maya graduated top of her class from medical school. She was always the one explaining medical concepts to me growing up. Why is it surprising that she'd be good at teaching? It's not that, my mother began, then faltered. It's that you all decided on a narrative about me, I said quietly. The one who couldn't cut it. The failure. And anything that contradicted that story was simply ignored. The tension in the room was palpable. My father opened his mouth, likely to dismiss or deflect, when the door opened again and Dr. Ramon entered, followed by a younger doctor I didn't recognize. Good morning, she said, taking in the crowded room with a quick glance. Ms. Keller. Your latest labs look excellent. This is Dr. Patel, he'll be managing your case when you move to the regular floor this afternoon. Dr. Patel stepped forward, hand extended to Vanessa. Pleased to meet you. Dr. Ramon has filled me in on your case. My father immediately turned his attention to the new doctor, sensing a potential ally in his quest for special accommodations. Dr. Patel, we've arranged for a room on the executive floor, Dr. Ramon smoothly interrupted. Dr. Patel and I have already discussed Ms. Keller's transfer. She'll be moved to the surgical recovery unit on the 4th floor, where the monitoring is most appropriate for her condition. Her tone was polite but final. My father looked momentarily taken aback. And used to having his wishes overridden so efficiently. Dr. Patel nodded in agreement. The surgical recovery unit has the best post-operative protocols for splenic repair patients. Our outcomes data is quite clear on this. Nathan, unwilling to be sidelined, stepped forward. As a surgeon myself, I understand the protocols, but surely, Dr. Keller, Dr. Ramon addressed me directly, ignoring Nathan completely. Would you mind stepping outside for a moment? There's something I'd like to discuss with you regarding your sister's care. I nodded, following her into the hallway, aware of my family's bewildered stares as we left. Dr. Patel remained behind, beginning his own examination of Vanessa. Once the door closed behind us, Dr. Ramon's professional demeanor relaxed slightly. Sorry to pull you out like that, but you looked like you needed rescuing. I laughed despite myself. That obvious, huh? Let's just say I recognize the signs of family-induced hypertension. She smiled, then grew more serious. But I actually do want to talk to you about something. That position I mentioned yesterday, the Trauma Prevention Initiative? The department chair wants to meet you. I blinked in surprise. Already? I haven't even said I'm interested. Aren't you? She asked simply. I hesitated. The truth was, the possibility had occupied my thoughts throughout the night as I'd watched over Vanessa. A position that bridged community health and trauma medicine? Teaching opportunities with real institutional support? It was exactly the kind of role I'd dreamed of but never thought possible. I don't know, I admitted. My life is pretty established at the clinic. I have responsibilities, patients who count on me. Dr. Rahman nodded understanding. No one's asking you to abandon that. This could be a complementary role, part-time if that works better. The point is creating pathways between community medicine and hospital systems, not forcing you to choose. A nurse approached, clipboard in hand. Dr. Rahman? The trauma team is requesting you in the ER. Multi-vehicle accident coming in. I'll be right there. She turned back to me. Think about it. The chair will be here until 2 today. No pressure, but if you want to meet, let me know. With that, she was gone, moving quickly toward the emergency department, already shifting into trauma surgeon mode, focused, efficient, purposeful. I stood in the hallway for a moment, considering her words. No pressure, but the opportunity itself was a form of pressure, wasn't it? A door opening that I hadn't allowed myself to imagine. When I returned to Vanessa's room, Dr. Patel had finished his examination and was explaining the transfer procedure to my family. I slipped in quietly, taking a position by the window. The move will happen around 2 this afternoon, he was saying. The recovery unit has private rooms, though not as large as the executive suites. The benefit is more frequent monitoring and specialized nursing staff. My father looked displeased but resigned. And when might she be discharged? If her progress continues at this rate, perhaps in 3 to 4 days. Though she'll need significant support at home for several weeks. We'll hire the best private nurses, my mother said immediately. I can take time off, I offered quietly from my corner. All eyes turned to me, as if they'd forgotten I was there. That's thoughtful, Maya, my mother said carefully, but your father has already made arrangements with a home healthcare agency. They're sending over profiles of potential nurses. This afternoon. Of course they had. Heaven forbid they might need to rely on the family failure for anything medical. Dr. Patel looked between us, sensing the undercurrent but professional enough not to comment. I'll leave you to discuss the details. A nurse will be in shortly to go over the transfer paperwork. After he left, Nathan turned to me with barely contained curiosity. What did Dr. Rahman want with you? I hesitated, then decided there was no point in hiding it. She offered me a position, leading a new trauma prevention initiative here at the hospital. The stunned silence was almost comical. My mother's mouth actually fell open slightly before she recovered her composure. A position? My father repeated, as if I'd said something in a foreign language. Here? At Memorial? Yes. That's unexpected, he said for the second time that morning. Nathan looked genuinely confused. Why would they offer you something like that? You're not even practicing medicine anymore. Vanessa made a sound of exasperation from her bed. Are you serious right now, Nathan? She literally just told you she's been teaching at a medical school and running a clinic for years. A free clinic, he emphasized. That's hardly the same as what? I interrupted, finding my voice. As your precious surgical practice where you see 3 patients an hour and bill insurance companies thousands? You're right, it's not the same. I see patients who would otherwise get no care at all. I teach students to look beyond the disease to the whole person. I publish research that changes protocols and saves lives. The words tumbled out, years of pent-up frustration finding release. Nathan stared at me, clearly unused to being challenged, especially by me. Maya, my father began, in the placating tone he reserved for difficult clients, no one is dismissing your volunteer work. It's admirable. But a position at Memorial? That's a different league entirely. Apparently not, Vanessa said from her bed, a hint of triumph in her voice. Since they're recruiting her. My mother, ever the pragmatist, latched onto the practical. What would this position entail, exactly? I explained what Dr. Rahman had outlined, developing community outreach programs, creating prevention protocols, building bridges between emergency services and underserved populations. As I spoke, I felt a growing enthusiasm I hadn't anticipated. This wasn't just a job offer, it was a chance to scale the work I'd been doing, to impact more lives. It would be part-time initially, I concluded, so I could maintain my responsibilities at the clinic. My father was studying me with that calculating look again, the one that assessed value and potential return. Memorial is a prestigious institution. A position there would be significant. Translation, it might finally be something he could brag about at the country club. I haven't decided yet, I said, though the excitement building in my chest suggested otherwise. I need to think about it. What's there to think about? Nathan asked, bewilderment evident. It's a step back into legitimate medicine. I bit back a sharp retort. After all these years, he still didn't get it. I never left legitimate medicine, Nathan. I just practice it differently than you do. A knock at the door interrupted us. A nurse entered with transfer paperwork, and the conversation shifted to practical matters, insurance forms, consent documents, care instructions. I used the opportunity to step out, needing air and space to think. The hallway was busy now, day shift in full swing. Nurses hurried between rooms, residents huddled over charts, family members waited anxiously outside doors. This had been my world once. Or almost. Was. The familiar rhythms of hospital life surrounded me, the coded announcements over intercoms, the squeak of rubber-soled shoes on linoleum, the distinct antiseptic smell that never quite faded. I made my way to the same courtyard garden I'd found the night before, seeking a moment of quiet. The morning sun had warmed the stone benches, and I sat, tilting my face toward the light. Penny for your thoughts? I opened my eyes to find Dr. Lian Chen, the surgical resident I'd encountered yesterday, standing nearby with 2 coffee cups. They're not worth that much, I replied with a small smile. I disagree. She handed me one of the coffees. Cream, no sugar, right? I remembered from your lectures. I accepted the cup, touched that she'd remembered such a detail. Thanks. You didn't have to do that. She shrugged, sitting beside me. Small repayment for changing my entire approach to community medicine. I think you're exaggerating my influence. Not at all. She sipped her coffee. Your lecture on social determinants of health is the reason I'm applying for the Rural Medicine Fellowship next year instead of the cushy plastic surgery position my parents want me to take. I looked at her with new interest. Really? The rural program is excellent but demanding. That's what you said in class. The hardest work often matters most. It stuck with me. I shook my head, amazed. I don't even remember saying that. You say a lot of things that stick with people, Dr. Keller. She glanced at her watch. I should get back to rounds. But I wanted to tell you, a bunch of us who took your seminar last year implemented your community screening protocol at the free clinic in Westside. We've identified 37 cases of early hypertension in just 3 months. Pride bloomed warm in my chest. That's incredible work. She stood, straightening her white coat. It's your protocol. We're just following your roadmap. She hesitated, then added, there's a rumor going around that you might be joining the staff here. I hope it's true. After she left, I sat holding the cooling coffee, thinking about ripples and ponds, about seeds planted years ago now bearing fruit, about words spoken and forgotten that had nonetheless changed someone's direction. Had I really made that much difference? I'd been so consumed by my family's narrative of my failure that I'd never fully acknowledged the impact of the path I'd chosen instead. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa, where are you? The transfer is happening soon and Mom is driving me crazy. I smiled, typing back, on my way. Hang in there. As I stood to leave, I noticed a figure at the entrance to the courtyard, my father, looking somewhat out of place in the small garden. There you are, he said, approaching with measured steps. Vanessa is asking for you. I know. I was just heading back. He nodded, then surprised me by sitting on the bench I'd just vacated. Join me for a moment? Curious, I sat beside him, leaving careful distance between us. He was silent for a long moment, staring at the small fountain in the center of the garden. When he finally spoke, his voice was uncharacteristically hesitant. I spoke with Dr. Rahman earlier. After the trauma call. I tensed slightly. Oh? She was quite forthcoming about your contributions to her education. And about your current work. I didn't know how to respond, so I said nothing. Which is the ability to see medicine not just as procedures and protocols, but as a bridge to community healing. He smiled slightly. Dr. Rahman said you taught her that. It's what we need here. As I left his office, my mind was swimming with possibilities. The position he described was almost too perfect, a role that would validate the path I'd chosen while expanding my impact beyond what was possible at the clinic alone. I checked my phone as I walked toward the elevators. A text from Vanessa, moved to room 412. Family gone for lunch. Come rescue me from boredom? I smiled, redirecting my steps toward the 4th floor. The regular patient rooms were warmer than ICU, with softer lighting and space for personal items. Vanessa had already arranged a small collection of things. Our mother had brought from her apartment, a framed photo, a soft throw blanket, her e-reader. There you are, she greeted me. How was your meeting with the department chair? I raised an eyebrow. News travels fast. Dr. Rahman mentioned it when she stopped by to check on me after the move. Vanessa adjusted her position slightly. wincing but looking more comfortable than she had in ICU. So? Tell me everything. I sat in the visitor's chair beside her bed and explained the opportunity Dr. Winters had outlined. As I spoke, I found myself growing more animated, the possibilities taking shape in my mind: prevention programs that could reduce injuries in vulnerable communities, training protocols that integrated community perspectives, research that might change practice nationwide. You're excited, Vanessa observed when I finished. I can see it in your eyes. I am, I admitted. But I'm also cautious. Hospital systems have a way of grinding down innovative ideas, turning them into bureaucratic checkboxes. So don't let that happen. She said it simply, as if the solution were obvious. You've spent 5 years building something meaningful at that clinic despite our family telling you it wasn't real medicine. You can maintain your integrity here too. I studied my younger sister with new appreciation. When had she become so insightful? The invitation to participate in rounds, a professional courtesy extended from one physician to another, was another small validation. I nodded, moving to the side of the room as the team gathered around Vanessa's bed. The discussion that followed was collaborative and thoughtful. Dr. Patel presented Vanessa's case to his residents, explaining the surgical approach and post-operative considerations. When they reached the discharge planning portion, he turned to me. Dr. Keller, given your expertise in transitions of care from hospital to community settings, what factors should we consider for Ms. Keller's discharge plan? The question was genuine, respectful, framed as one colleague seeking another's specialized knowledge. I outlined considerations about medication management, wound care education, social support systems, and follow-up protocols that would maximize recovery while minimizing complications. The residents took notes. Dr. Patel nodded approval. Vanessa watched the exchange with evident pride. When rounds concluded and the medical team departed, Vanessa reached for my hand. That, she said firmly, is what real medicine looks like. Not Nathan's status-obsessed specialization or Dad's outdated hierarchy. What just happened: physicians collaborating across specialties, learning from each other, focusing on patient outcomes, that's medicine at its best. Her insight struck me deeply. For years, I'd internalized my family's definition of real medicine: prestigious institutions, competitive specialties, status and income as measures of success. I'd felt like a failure for choosing a different path, even as that path brought me fulfillment and allowed me to make meaningful impact. When did you get so wise? I asked for the second time that day. She smiled wryly. Maybe having your spleen nearly rupture gives you clarity about what matters. I squeezed her hand gently. I should go find the others. You need rest. Maya, she called as I reached the door. Take the position. Not for the family name or the prestige or any of that nonsense. Take it because you can change medicine from the inside. The system needs people like you. I found my family in the waiting area, my mother immersed in her phone, my father staring pensively out the window, Nathan and Sophia speaking in low tones in the corner. How is she? My mother asked immediately. Doing well. The medical team is pleased with her progress. My father nodded, then surprised me by asking, and what did you think of their assessment? It was a professional question, physician to physician, not father to daughter. Another subtle shift. Thorough and appropriate, I replied. Dr. Patel is excellent. Nathan approached, hands in his pockets, uncharacteristically hesitant. You were included in rounds. It wasn't quite a question, but I answered anyway. Yes. Dr. Patel wanted my perspective on community transitions of care. Nathan nodded slowly. I heard some residents talking earlier about your screening protocol for post-discharge complications. They're implementing it in several departments. Here. Are they? I hadn't known this. That's good to hear. An awkward silence fell. Nathan seemed to be wrestling with something internally. Finally, he spoke again. I may have been dismissive of your work at the clinic. Coming from Nathan, this halting acknowledgement was equivalent to a dramatic apology from anyone else. You were, I agreed, not making it easier for him. 5 years of belittling comments and dismissive attitudes wouldn't be erased with one reluctant admission. He nodded, accepting this. I still don't fully understand your choice. Leaving surgery, I mean. But clearly others see value in your approach. It wasn't exactly a ringing endorsement, but from Nathan, it was significant progress. Thank you, I said simply. My mother, ever practical, interrupted this fragile moment of reconciliation. Shall we discuss dinner? The Italian place your father mentioned, perhaps? If Vanessa is settled for the evening? Dinner with my family would once have filled me with dread, hours of deflecting subtle criticisms, navigating conversational landmines, being reminded of my perceived failures. Tonight, strangely, I found myself open to the possibility. That sounds nice, I agreed. Let me check with the nurses to make sure Vanessa is comfortable for the evening. As I turned to go, my father touched my arm lightly. Maya, regardless of what you decide about the position here, I want you to know that I'm proud of the work you've done. The path you've chosen. The words I'd waited years to hear, delivered. Simply in a hospital waiting room. My throat tightened unexpectedly. Thank you, I managed. Later that evening, seated at a quiet corner table in the restaurant my family had frequented for special occasions throughout my childhood, I observed the subtle shifts in our dynamic. My mother, who had always directed conversation with the precision of an orchestra conductor, made space for me to speak about my work. My father asked thoughtful questions about community health challenges. Even Nathan, though still reserved, listened without immediately dismissing concepts outside his specialized worldview. As we waited for dessert, my father raised his wine glass. To Vanessa's recovery, he began, and to Maya's new opportunity, whatever she decides. We clinked glasses, the simple ritual feeling somehow profound after years of strained family dinners. Have you decided? My mother asked directly. About the position? I considered the question carefully. I'm leaning toward accepting the trial period. 6 months to see if I can make the impact I want to while maintaining my work at the clinic. A sensible approach, my father approved. Nathan twirled his wine glass slowly. The trauma department will benefit from your perspective. They've become too focused on technical solutions, not enough on prevention and community context. Coming from Nathan, this acknowledgement of my potential contribution was extraordinary. Thank you, I said, genuinely touched. As we finished our meal and prepared to leave, my mother embraced me, a rare physical demonstration from a woman who typically expressed affection through practical actions rather than touch. We haven't always understood your choices, she said quietly. But perhaps we needed to learn to see medicine the way you do. Outside the restaurant, as we waited for the valet to bring our cars, my father stood beside me in companionable silence. Finally, he spoke. Dr. Rahman said something today that struck me. She said you taught her that medicine isn't just about fixing what's broken, but about building what could be. I've been thinking about that. And? I prompted when he paused. And I think perhaps that's what you've been doing all along. Building something new, something important, while we were looking in the wrong direction. The admission, coming from my father, the patriarch whose approval I'd sought and failed to obtain for so long, felt like the closing of a circle. Thank you for seeing that, I said simply. 2 weeks later, I stood in my new office at Memorial Hospital. It was small but bright, with a window overlooking the community garden. I'd brought a few items from the clinic, a framed photo of our staff, a plant my patients had given me when I announced my part-time departure, the worn copy of Community Medicine, Principles and Practice that had guided my early work. Dr. Rahman knocked on the open door, smiling as she entered. Getting settled? Just about, I replied, arranging the last few items on my desk. Still feels a bit surreal. Having second thoughts, she asked perceptively. Not exactly. Just adjusting to straddling two worlds. She nodded understanding. Integration is never easy. But it's necessary. Hospital medicine needs the community perspective you bring, and community health needs the institutional resources and reach. A group of residents passed by my door, pausing when they saw Dr. Rahman. One of them, a young woman with determined eyes, glanced at me with clear recognition. Dr. Keller, she said. I'm looking forward to your seminar on social determinants of trauma next week. I've already read your paper on the topic. After they continued down the hall, Dr. Rahman smiled. See? They're ready for what you have to teach them. I hope so, I said. There's a lot of inertia in medical education. A lot of resistance to expanding beyond technical skills. All the more reason we need you here, she replied. I didn't reach out to Dr. Winters on a whim. The system changes when people like you push from within. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa, now recovering at home with the help of the home health nurse we'd selected together, kicked but at PT. Today. Nurse says I'm ahead of schedule. Coming to your first lecture next week. No arguments. I smiled, showing Dr. Rahman the message. My personal cheering section. You have more of those than you realize, she said. The clinic team is talking about attending too. And I heard your family might make an appearance. The thought of my family, my father with his measured pride, my mother with her practical support, even Nathan with his reluctant respect, sitting in on my lecture filled me with an unexpected warmth. 5 years ago, I thought I'd failed, I said quietly. Failed at becoming the kind of doctor my family expected, failed at following the path that had been laid out for me. And now? Dr. Rahman prompted. I looked around the small office, at the bridge I was building between worlds, at the path I had forged that was uniquely mine. Now I understand that what looked like failure was actually finding my way. My authentic way of practicing medicine. Dr. Rahman nodded, understanding in her eyes. You taught me that, you know. That there are many ways to heal, many paths to becoming the physician you're meant to be. A notification popped up on my computer, a reminder for my first meeting with the trauma prevention team in 15 minutes. Ready to revolutionize trauma care? Dr. Rahman asked with a smile. One step at a time, I replied, gathering my notes. But yes, I think I am. As we walked together down the hospital corridor, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. My family had said I failed medical school, or close enough, by leaving the path they'd chosen for me. They never saw the nights I spent mentoring struggling students, the lives touched through community care, the systems changed through quiet, persistent work. But one woman did. She walked in, spoke my name, and their whispers died. And in that moment of recognition, something powerful was born, not just the validation of my choices, but the affirmation that sometimes what looks like failure to others is actually the first step toward your most meaningful contribution. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.